Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Welcome. I just want to welcome everyone today. And this is the National Compadres Healing Generations podcast, hosted by the National Comadres Network. And we are so grateful that you are joining us today, because we know that you could be doing a lot of things, but that choice to be with us means so much to us. So thank you. Thank you very much for spending this time with us. And also, I just want to say Happy International Women's Day. And that's a big deal because there have been so many sacrifices from so many women to accomplish things that have gone unnoticed, that have gone with much, much energy, dedication, from women that we don't even know their names. So we want to honor them today in this precious day of National Women's Day. And with that, I'm coming to you from the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, which is Ohlone land. And those are the native people up here. And I'm doing pretty well today. And with that, comadre, how are you doing down south over there? How's it going for you over there?
Hi, comadre. Actually, I'm giving thanks for all the water that we need over here in Los Angeles, California. Actually, today's a sunny day, so I'm giving thanks for that papasol up there, Tonatiuh. Trying to get as much energy as I can before the next storm hits. But I know we need that water here, with the drought situation. But I'm also just feeling really grateful. You're expressing your gratitude for all the women. International Women's Day today. This morning when I woke up and I remembered that, I was just thinking of all the blessings that I've been given for all the powerful mujeres that have been placed in my life, all the maestras, all my friends, all the tias, all the abuelitas, all that circle of sisterhood of mujeres, as well as nieces and granddaughters that have blessed my life with so much medicine in so many ways and brought so much healing to me. So my heart is full, and I just hope every woman that's hearing this today can just feel that love and know that you're loved and you're being acknowledged, you're sacred, and you're a blessing.
Yes, that's so, so true, right? I mean, thank God for our grandmothers, right? Esos abuelitas. Boy, the blessings that they brought, all that wisdom, and for sisterhood, right? Mm-hmm. That sisterhood. And I'm so grateful, comadre, to be on this podcast with you and for the work that we've been able to do. So, yes, thank you very much for the sisterhood that we're able to share on this beautiful day. And with that, I'm very excited because we've got a wonderful guest. Again, to just sit around this microphone and hear those teachings and hear those life experiences. And it's very exciting for me because, we're bringing the West Coast in today, la Caribe, los caribeños, which are a very important part of us, right? Because sometimes we don't talk about that Afro-Latino side sometimes, we forget about that, but we're such beautiful people with an array. We have a spectrum of who it is that we are. And so I'm very excited about that today. And I just want to say to our listeners, today you are going to hear something. And I know I repeat this over and over, but it's the truth. You're going to hear something that is going to touch your spirit and your heart and bring those words that you need to hear today. And is going to bring healing to your life that you need today as we go on with this podcast. So with no further ado, comadre, let's introduce our guest for today.
Absolutely, absolutely. She's a beautiful mujer, a powerful mujer. She's an hermana también. Her name is Yari Acosta DeLeon. Powerful name for a powerful mujer, but
Yes.
you deserve all of it, all of it. She is Dominican-born, raised in the United States. She is currently married, been married for 23 years, and lives with her husband, Jewel, and her 2 beautiful daughters. She holds her master's degree in social work. She's also worked for many years as mental health specialist. She is a devoted and dedicated advocate to her culture, to her people, and especially to her community. Yari, hermana, such an honor to be in your presence and to have you here to bless us all with all your hard-earned wisdom, your years of medicina, and all the ancestors that you come with, that you bring. So I'm just going to pass the palabra to you and let you just share from your heart whatever comes out of your spirit. We're just having a plática like comadres here. Share a little bit about yourself, your familia, your background, the work you're connected to, anything that comes from your heart.
Thank you. Primero, gracias. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited to be, a part of this conversation. I know that our culture and, how we live our daily lives, it plays a role in the decisions and all the things that we do. But I feel so blessed being next to Maestra Debbie and next to Maestra Susie for allowing me to be in your circle and partaking in this conversation. I said it earlier, East Coast, West Coast love, right?
That's right.
And being, from the Caribe, Maestra Deborah, thank you so much for recognizing that. I live on Long Island in New York. I live in a town called Holbrook, who is populated by so many indigenous. We have our, Native Americans, all around us on this island. And sometimes it hurts when, we see their struggle and the fight that they're doing in order to preserve what's true and what's theirs, and us being here, borrowing, their land and living on their land, learning from them. But thank you for recognizing, that I am from the Caribe. I am Dominican. I was born in the U.S., but I'm a first-generation American. I was raised with both of my cultural backgrounds of the Dominican Republic. I spent most of my youth there. So I feel like I'm a cross of both worlds. But, we hear so much about the history of other, like from the Incas and the Mayas and the Aztecs, and sometimes people are not knowledgeable about, the Taínos and the Arawaks, I guess because of their non-existence, per se, where in other native lands, the culture and the people are still alive, and so integrated into the life and the culture, where we in the Caribbean, we feel a little bit at a loss, and I feel like with time and as I progress in my age, I get to acknowledge it more, to be able to accept it a little bit more, especially the Afro-Latino side of it, with so much racism and so much separation of what was and, what is, and, and how we can bridge, those two cultures together and it be a part of, who we are and how we represent it. So I thank you for acknowledging that. Many don't acknowledge that part of the Caribe, and I think it's a struggle for la gente del Caribe to be able to say, yeah, you know what? We are mestizos, we come from a mixed culture. It's unfortunate that, the native Taínos and Arawakos are, they dissipated, but they didn't. It's just a mix of a whole lot of culture, and being able to acknowledge it and say, we're still here. In one way, shape, or form, we're still here. But thank you for having me. I can't wait,
Yes.
For the rest of this plática to happen. But thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Yes, what a truth that we as indigenous people all around the world, right, sometimes get messages that aren't true. And what we have to do is to find out the truth about those things culturally. And I know, being Puerto Rican, that we were told this lie that there are no Taínos. And that is not true. Taínos are alive and well in the Caribe, in Central and South America, the Arawakos. And I have been blessed to have been studying under a teacher, a Maestro Alfonso Peralta, that teaches the ways that are so difficult to find, right? We have to go find these teachers in order to reclaim our history. But we have a rich history. And the colonizers and the invaders, their agenda is to make us think that it isn't there. But it is there. We have a history that is materialized in evidence, and we have it within our bodies. And so can you talk a little bit about being a Dominicana, culturally? What does that mean for you? What is the richness that you feel that it brings for you?
It's funny, my hair's just stood up all over just by asking me that question. Like I said, being a first generation Dominican American it's unique, especially that I'm raising two younger daughters who are now third generation, second generation, right? And I wear it on my sleeve. It's like I can't deny it, and it's a part of who I am, and the way I talk, the way I cook, the way I dance, like it's everything about me. And some people find it really difficult, to say, well, why, when people ask me, like, well, what are you? My first answer is, I'm Dominican, and they're like, but were you born here? Or they'll tell me like, wow, you speak really good Spanish, and I'm like, why wouldn't I, But I guess it's because, when I'm looking at both worlds, when I am in the Dominican Republic, and then when I am here, that I get these questions, and I'm like, well, in my house, I learned English and Spanish simultaneously. Both my parents are immigrant Dominicans. They came in the early 70s. One came in 69 and the other one came in 70. And I have to tell you that I just didn't know anything else but, and when I was younger, nosotros usamos la palabra el patio, when you're going home, ¿para dónde tú vas? Para el patio, right? Oh, o cuando tú vas al patio, because that means when are you going back to the motherland, right? When are you going back home? And it's interesting that, for me, I feel blessed that I was able to go to el patio every single summer of my life until I turned 15. My parents didn't have someone to take care of me. And since, como yo era la hembra, I was the girl, they would ship me to el campo, which is like, and it was funny. It was only me. It would be like 6 or 7 of the kids from the neighborhood who were from the same campo, that they would get one person who would take us to Dominican Republic, and we would spend our entire summers there. But interesting enough, people's concept of me being in the Dominican Republic, it was like, oh, well, you were at the beach, you were hanging out. And I'm like, no, my grandparents were farm people. They had their own farmland. Ellos cosechaban, from plátanos to arvejas, we had animals and cows. And, I used to wake up in the morning at 5:30 in the morning. My grandfather's like, a levantarse todo el mundo a trabajar, So it wasn't all fun and games for me to be in the Dominican Republic and be like, I'm at the beach. No, I was living the culture. I was living and breathing the culture. I was with my grandparents, and I come from a very huge family. I have 24 aunts and uncles. Both my parents are a family of 12, and my family is huge, and I got to go to 2 sides of the island. So for me, it's a part of my every fiber of my being, it's what I was taught at home. And, when I was home, I spoke in Spanish. I had no other way to communicate with my mother if I didn't. And my dad, even though he spoke English, we just spoke Spanish in our home. So to me, being Dominican is, it's just who I am. It's from my hair to my skin color to how I talk. It's funny, I'm married to a Guatemalan, and when I'm in Guatemala, I sound Guatemalan. But when you put me together with my people, it's like a whole different story, because I talk the way my people talk, but people find it hard to understand why I'm so connected to being Dominican. I don't say I'm American, My hair is, I came to accept my Afro-Latina side when I became a teenager, talking about colonizing, right? My mom, when I was younger, always did my hair every Saturday. To her, it was like, era el día para peinarse su pelo, And I would sit there and she would blow it out, and I had this straight, beautiful hair. And one day when I was 13, I just said, it is hot. I am not going underneath that hair dryer. There is no way in hell you're going to put me in the hair dryer. And she told me, she goes, gran pajón, tú vas a tener, She goes, watch, you're going to be coming back to ask me to blow out your hair. And then I realized that I had this huge afro. like these curls, right? And I was like, where did this come from? Like, I had no idea, you know? My mom has the exact same hair as I do. And to this day and age, I've never seen my mother with curly hair. And I asked why, because in Dominican Republic, in El Caribe, we have a term that's used, pelo bueno and pelo malo. And because of the African slaves that were bought, especially in Dominican Republic, especially with, with the split of the island between the Haitians and the Dominican, which is, it breaks my heart because we're all one people. The Africans were bought over as slaves. They didn't ask to come here, And the whole point is that if you didn't have white skin, straight hair, then era mala raza, and I'm like, why? I'm like, I don't get that, and it's funny because we have to think about in the Dominican Republic, we had communism at some point with Trujillo, and él quería blancar la raza to the point that he was killing people in order to be able to whitewash the country. And even himself, él era trigueñito, pero él se ponía polvo, he used to put white powder on his face in order so he could pass as white. That's why he always wore white gloves. He never wore his hands free. And it was because he was hiding that part of our indigenous culture, that part of that mestizo culture with the African slaves being brought. So this has been indoctrinated, within the Dominican culture that having curly hair, that being trigueño, that it's mala raza. And it's one of the most beautiful things. People are going to the Dominican Republic every single year to go bathe under our beautiful sol, right? To have these beautiful complexions, and they wish they had our hair like us. And here we are, in 2023, and we're still struggling within our own race about qué lo que es mala raza, o qué lo que es pelo malo. So now I wear my pajon with pride. I put my gel in it because, I need to keep it. But at the end of the day, I'm proud of my curls. I'm proud that part of that mestizo is what gives me my melatonin in my skin. It gives me all this stuff. And, being Dominican is just something that's just in me. And I'm trying to raise my daughters the same way, that they understand that even though they're born here, when people ask you, even to this day, when people ask me, well, what are you? And sometimes to frustrate people, I'll say, well, I'm American. And they're like, no, but what are you really? I'm like, I'm American. And they're like, come on, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not good enough to be Dominican, and I'm not good enough to be American. So what do you want me to tell you? And then they were like, oh, you see, you are from someplace else. I was like, yeah. I said, but I was born here. And I said, that makes me American. So it's a little bit of a struggle sometimes because, people want to pigeonhole you to be what they want you to be and not just that you be who you are.
Right.
So for me, que viva la bandera.
Que viva.
My goodness, you articulated that so beautifully. And it's so sad that, everybody wants to put us in a box, and just there's so many beautiful facets to us as mujeres that we have so much medicine, it's in every realm, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, so many gifts. We're granted with so many gifts, and then to just try to be so one way or the other, it's so limiting. It sounds so limiting. And then knowing you personally and how big your spirit is, and just how you dance with life and whatever comes your way, it's like, no, she can't even fit there. Like you're too big to fit in those two categories. You're so much more than that. As with many of our women of color as well, all mujeres, have so much medicina. I know that in our previous conversations, you had a birthday, I believe.
A few months back, and I'm coming to another one soon. I'm coming to in a few more months, but I'm coming into that new decade.
You're heading into that elderhood, even though I think you've been there for a long time. It's just, will be official. It'll be official. But in reflecting on that, and I'm sure you have taken some time to reflect, as you're going to come into this next quadrant of your life. I was wondering if maybe you could share, because you have so much experience in so many different areas, but I'm going to give you some key words and see if anything hits for you as you come into this next quadrant in your elderhood. The word letting go. What does it that you want to leave behind, that you don't want to, that cargas you don't want to take with you into this next quadrant? The power of empathy. And then the beautiful word that you taught me about, and maybe you can explain a little bit about that too, about compatience. We all need compatience.
It's funny. You stuck to that word compatience, and the last couple of weeks, I've been sticking to the word release and surrender. And I think that's part of that let go.
Yes.
You know, we carry so much of this baggage, but I think we need to start reflecting on how we're carrying that baggage and what we're going to do with that baggage. And part of it is letting go. You know, it's like forgiveness, right? When we think about forgiveness,
Right.
it's about really about the person, you know, not the person who people think, oh, you need to forgive that person, right? Or what have you, or the situation. It took me a long time to realize that forgiveness is really about me, you know, about how I let go of what's on my shoulders and what I'm carrying when it's not my cross to bear, when I've learned to let go of that cross, you know, and say, take the experience from the situation and turn it into something positive and not carry that and let it go. So I think that coming into this new decade and this time, I've been really reflective of what is it that I'm carrying and why am I carrying it? What purpose is it giving me, right? And I really believe that with everything in life, it's a season, a reason, or a lifetime, right? You know, it's a
Absolutely.
season, a reason, or a lifetime. And when it's a season and it's fulfilled its purpose, positive or negative, even if it's negative, take the positive about it and just let it go because it taught you something, right? It fulfilled whatever it needed to fulfill at that moment and at that time in your life. And I've learned that carrying all that weight is just not only emotionally draining, it's also physically draining. And it stops you from being able to reach another level, right? And then when something comes in for a reason, we think that we have control of our destiny. And we think that we have control of so many things that happen in our lives. And I've come to realize that we don't. There is something bigger than us.
Right.
That destiny was already determined the day that I was born. And I realized that as much as I fight and I struggle, maybe the reason why I'm suffering. And it's because I'm just not letting things evolve and meet its reason why it happened in my life, you know? And this, you know, I'm still in that reason and season when it comes to different situations in my life. But I've learned to, through meditation, through prayer, that maybe I'm not allowing its fruition to come through because I'm too stuck on what is it that I want to have control over. So I've learned to let go and just let it happen and then just deal with the consequences. I used to tell my mother this when I was a little girl all the time when I wanted to do something on my own and be like, yo, man, just let me do this, you know? And el refrán era un gustazo, un trancazo. If I enjoyed it and I lived it, whatever the consequence to whatever it is later on, it is what it is. But I lived it. I lived it and I gave it a chance. How many people are so afraid just to live or to just take a chance just because they're afraid of what the outcome is going to be? That outcome has already been determined. We just have to let it happen, you know? And then you think about the lifetime part of it, right? How do you take those experiences for the lifetime? It's like friends. People come for a reason, a season, a lifetime too. It could be family, you know, your job. It could be everything. It could be anything. The point is that it's there for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. So I'm going to take my reason and my season to make my lifetime the best that it can be, you know, and that's where I'm at. I'm at this point that I always question what I deserved and, you know, should I go for this? Should I not go for this? Should I do this or should I not do this? And I kept going, then I thought, well, maybe I don't deserve that. And then at one point, I'm getting to that point that I'm like, yeah, I do deserve that. I've worked hard. I deserve to have that, you know? I deserve to put myself in a different place. Yeah. As long as I'm not jeopardizing or hurting anybody else or myself in the long run. And I think that sometimes we forget about everything else that's around us and now realize that our actions do affect other things that are around us, but it doesn't hurt to be selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And, we think selfish is a really bad word, and it's not. Because sometimes people who are empaths, I'm an empath, right? We talked about the word
Right.
empath, right? People who are empathetic are people who are able to take, but also be able to release, right? And the reality of it is that when we're clogged or so many things are coming at us that we lose that control, that sometimes that's when things become cargas, because we're not learning how to release. We need to learn how to release. We need to learn how to surrender and release. At the last Círculo that we had together with the Comadres Network, I have to tell you that, Mana Susie and Mana Deborah, you, Maestras, you put it clear for me, I didn't know how to surrender and release. I felt there was something wrong when I did that because I felt that it meant that I gave up, or that I wasn't trying hard enough in whatever it is that was coming in my way. And then I was questioning and judging myself. And then I realized that I'm an empath. If I can take in and release for other people, then why can't I do that for myself? I deserve to do that for myself. And I come to you, to the both of you, to guide me, right? And you made me feel that it was okay and that there was nothing wrong with releasing. I never thought that crying was for the weak, ever, because I think you guys have taught it best. I've learned so much from you where crying is a part of the body telling you it's looking for its way to release whatever those energies are, for you to be able to let go, right? We have to let go. And then we have to let's go back to our word, compatience, right? That's a big word. I'm not going to take credit for it. I wish I could remember where I heard it from, but it was another workshop that I had attended about self-healing. And one of the things that we have to be compassionate individuals, but that comes with a lot of patience. And sometimes with the way this world is turning, it's like nobody has the patience for anything, including myself, right? And I think that when we're in these situations where we have to find compassionate for others, we have to be able to have the patience for those people or even yourself to come to their realization. What things, and they do this to you in social work. You have to meet your clients where they're at. You got to meet them where they're at. And sometimes that takes patience because it's not about you. It's about them. So we should be able to do the same thing for ourselves. Why can't we have compassion for ourselves? Why is it so hard for us to do that for ourselves? And it's because, como el Día de la Mujer Internacional, we were taught as women that we take, and that we're quick, and that we resolve, that we take care of everything as quickly, but we have no patience for our own selves, but we have patience for the rest of the world. So how do we change that? And I think that one of the things, like, the cultura cura, that has taught me is that you have to take time, right? That's part of patience. You have to take the time to feel, the time to process, because that's when you understand. And when you understand, you learn how to release, surrender, and let go. That's just it. It's easier said than done. Trust me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. I mean, talk about a handful of teachings that just went out. I mean, talk about provocation. If you heard what was just said, I know it sent your mind in many directions, and we need to hear these things. Absolutely. We need to hear these different things that challenge us. This is what growth is all about. Growth is all about that reflection and looking at ourselves and saying, okay, in that little gap right there, I need to grow it. Strengthen those areas so that we really can become that reflection that we anhelamos, right? We desire to become. Yari, you shared about your cultural identity and how it's innate in you. It's not something you think about it. It's just something that you are. You talk about so much of the experience that you have been through in your life. And I know, because I know you, not only academically, you're achieved, but also you have done so much work in the community. And this podcast, even though it goes out worldwide, we want to emphasize the women and young women, right? And I know that you have done a lot of work with young women, women that have been system impacted, women in trafficking, women that have unaccompanied minors. You know, like you have been in the work on the ground. And can you share with us how you implement those teachings in the work that you do to elevate, to lift up the youth that you work with or mujeres that you work with?
You know, all of the work that I've done, I just put the word empowerment in front of myself. All of these young girls and all of these women, they're capable. They just need to know that someone believes in them.
Mm.
And they need to know that it's okay for them not to be okay, right? You have to give them their space. And sometimes when they come, like you said before, you know, I've worked as, you know, as a supervisor for the Ayuda Latina hotline. You know, I'm working with human trafficking now. I've worked with gang intervention prevention work. And I'm talking about even when I worked with the Girl Scouts of Nassau County, you know, I did, you know, girls from 5 to 18, right? And now I work with adult women and they just want to be heard, you know? They need validity. I think we shame so much that what they went through, they've already gone through their own shame. They already feel that they've been beaten and into the ground and that they're not worth anything, you know? And that because they've allowed whatever this injustice that's happened to them, you know, that, you know, this victimization that they've gone through, that it's already their fault because they allowed it to happen. That's just key number one, right? Is letting them know and giving them that support that it's not their fault. That these situations that they've been put in, they feel that because they make certain choices and that's why they're there, but they don't realize that some of this is generational trauma, right? There's some of the, like you said, like I'm innate, this Dominicanism is innate in me. Sometimes living a life of a victim becomes innate because that's what they're born into, you know, or their lives have, you know, it just kept evolving and evolving at every stage of their growth. What they need is someone to sit there and say, I understand, you know, be empathetic, be that listening. You know, people underrate listening so much, you know, they just want to be heard. You know, like we do in the cultura cura, right? One of the things that we learned is that we don't give out tissues, right? You need to let people feel. You need to let them be in that moment at that time. And if whatever great being has brought us to be together in a room, for me to listen to what you need to release, then my job is to be able to validate what it is that you're feeling. My job is to validate that what happened to you is real and that it's not your fault. But most importantly, that is an experience in your life. It doesn't make who you are. And when we can get people, women, young women, all women, to understand that when things happen to them, anything, good or bad, it's an experience at that moment and at that time. What you do with it afterwards, yes, it may help you make certain better decisions later on, but it doesn't define you. It doesn't define you. And they need to be reminded of that. That whatever happened to them is not their fault. They're entitled to feel how they feel, but that there is an opportunity to change. That when they're ready to sit at that table, and it's a process. This is not a cookie cutter solution to these, you know, different types of victimization that the population that I work with, you know, experience. Everybody experiences differently because it depends how they handle it, right? But at the end of the day, it's about being sobrevivientes, you know, que ellas sí son sobrevivientes. Ellas no son víctimas. You're not a victim. Because if you're still here and you're still standing, then that makes you a survivor. So we need to make that switch to have them understand that if they're standing there and they're telling you that story and they're telling you what they're going through, that they're not a victim, that they're a survivor. And we have to get them to see themselves at that moment, at that point, and realize that that one experience that they have does not define the rest of their life. It doesn't. And I think that through the work that I do, that I've been blessed to be able to do this. I found this late in my life, right? I've always been someone that was just a little kid, always giving, taking my clothes off of my back, always, you know. But when I went to college, you know, social work wasn't for the people of color, you know. Social work was for other people, not for people of color. Very, minimal people of color were going into this field when I was in college, and I came to still do all this advocacy work just on my own time, and because I felt that I needed to help people heal, right? Because I'm an empath. I was born an empath, and finally, in my adulthood, way after careers, I realized that, you know what? Me too. I still have the opportunity to go and do something else for myself and be able to gain those skills to be able to help people who can't help themselves. And I went to grad school, and I graduated at the age of 47, and, it wasn't easy, but I knew that I needed more to be able to continue to help more. So I think that, to answer your question, Maestra Deborah, is being that listening ear, giving them that space, and letting them know that it's okay. But don't let that experience define what the rest of your life is. That's just an experience. That's un grano de arena in your life. It might be, a big grano de arena, because I'm not minimizing anybody's, pain and suffering, right? But if you think about un vaso lleno de arena, that, for every little experience that you've had in your life, another piece of sand comes over it. And the sand builds, right? And it's like, like these are the days of your life. What was the name of the soap opera, right? Days of Our Lives, right?
How old are you? No.
Now you're dating all of us.
Think about that, right? Think about these are the days of our life. We never look at, I have to tell you, this just came to me. Like, and I'm literally seeing the commercial with the hourglass, right? That's one grano de arena in that whole big vase of everything else that has happened in your life. So for me, again, being that listening ear, allowing them to feel and validate their feelings, and then empowering them that there's more to them than just that. And then how can we get you there? I'm not going to tell you how to get there. I'm going to help you get there, but I'm not going to tell you how to get there, because everybody's path is different. And everybody needs to be where they need to be when they're there. And we just have to work with that. Mm-hmm. It's not easy, and sometimes it's heartbreaking, and when you see people in Manas who are stuck, and
absolutely,
they see no way out, and you see the helplessness and the despair, that's what motivates me. That's what pushes me, because I know I can see what they don't see. Mm-hmm. And I want to get them to see what I see.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I know that, the work that you do, and a lot of us that are devoted to serving in any way that we can, whatever way that Creator puts these situations in our life, put these people in our lives, we all have the best intentions of helping in any way we can, of showing up for people, of being that support system in whatever way that they need. When Creator brings these mujeres and these beautiful mujercitas in our life. But I know personally for myself, because we do give so much, there's so much energy going out, and then it's always a struggle for me to remember about balance and, when I'm overdoing it, and when to step in, when to pull back and take care of my own health as well, and be, like you said, selfish, or even not even selfish, but care for ourselves. How important that is, especially if we want to be doing this work for a long time. But there have been those moments I have to be serious and honest, where I really question what I'm doing. And I'm just, having a hard time. And I'm wondering, is it time for me to step out of this now? Or is there still more of me left to give? Or am I even making a difference? Is it time to just pass the baton? What is that? I've had that at different phases of my life where I question that, and I'm just feeling depleted. And I know that has a lot to do with, because I have went past my threshold about my energy, that's usually what triggers it. But when I get to that point, sometimes I get stuck. And if I don't take care of it, I'll keep spiraling down and questioning other things and other things and other things. But I know in having those experiences, the pattern for me that I've seen when I get there now, at this point in my life, Creator is so generous, so gracious, and so affirming and confirming that whenever I get there now, and if I think back through the years, whenever I've been there in the past, Creator will always be so gracious to put somebody in my path and just spread all this grace and light over me and confirmation and affirmation. And, Creator uses people to do that, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful gift of grace when that happens. And you get that extra medicina that you need for when you're feeling that low. I'm wondering, I know there has to be because of all the mujeres and mujercitas that you've worked with through the years. Maybe you could share with us what is one time maybe that has happened and you've been graced with that beautiful medicine when you needed it most.
You're right. There are times when we're like, hands up, enough is enough, and again, I don't know if this is coming into this new decade or what it's doing, but I have this conversation with my husband all the time. I'm like, babe, I can't do this for the rest of my life. When is it gonna stop, right? And he looked at me, he goes, it's never gonna stop, right? Right. He goes, you want to fool yourself and think that it's gonna stop? He goes, it's never gonna stop. He goes, you can't help yourself. And he was like, because someone in the time of need will find you. He goes, you can hide in the darkest corner of the earth, and someone that needs light will find you in one way, shape, or another. And, and I think about that because I've gotten to a point that I'm like, I'm done. I need to pass the baton. People younger than me should be doing this. Why do I keep getting sucked back in to doing like teaching work or lecturing or workshops, about teaching people about X, Y, and Z, right? It's because somebody needs to hear it. Mm-hmm. Somebody needs to hear it. And the Creator is choosing for me to resonate, right? But it has happened to me where I've, even for the sake of my own children, I've thought to myself, it's time for me to be selfish and focus on my family and not be out there. And I think the light bulb hit me twofold. Once was when my own daughters turned around and told me, we need you to. Mm-hmm. That was a big one for me. When they said to me, we need you to.
Yes. Yeah.
They were like, I'm not probably being gangbanged in the corner. I'm not homeless. I got a roof over my head. I got parents who love me. I'm getting an education. And I really shouldn't be complaining about anything. But I'm going through my own stuff too. And you're not here. And I need you too.
Yeah.
And because we think that we can give all of these necessities, right? Forget about the materialistic things. It's about being present. And that's what they were asking of me. Right. That they needed me to be present there. And that their life was moving along. And that I was not there. So that was the one time in my selfishness state that I had to, because we don't think about our families as those in need. That we have to serve, right? Right. And it goes twofold. And I'm going to tell you a little story later on about what happened to me yesterday. But in this instance, it wasn't about the people, right? It's always about the people outside of my little, my little home, right? That I was not giving them what they needed. And the fact that they had a voice and said, we need you too. And we're moving along and you're not here. So I had to find a balance to be able to fulfill my need to be present in my family's life, be there for the things that they're going through. And just because they have all of these materialistic things to keep them safe and sound, I found out that they weren't safe and sound. Because lo que se ve de afuera es diferente a lo que se siente adentro. Right? That doesn't mean that my kids didn't experience bullying. That doesn't mean that my kids didn't experience racism. And here I'm thinking that because I'm living this white picket fence life, that they're shunned from that. And they weren't. So for me, that was one of them. I had this one young lady that I was working with, very difficult, very difficult. And she would not let anybody in. I mean, even now, I'm still connected to her in different ways, even though it's not part of the work that I'm doing right now, but I'm still connected with this youth. And I couldn't understand the hatred that she had towards someone. I couldn't fathom it, And at first I was like, this kid is helpless. Like, I don't know how I'm going to help this kid. I have no idea how I'm going to help this kid. I mean, I saw this kid elevate, literally, physically elevate, because of all the anger and the hurt and the pain that she had, that she literally physically elevated from a chair, because that's how much power it had over her.
Wow.
And I said to myself at that moment, I can't do this. I don't have what it takes to help this kid. You know, I don't know what. Prayers and prayers and prayers, all I kept thinking about, because I didn't know how I was going to help heal this kid, you know? And the mere fact that she never wanted to talk to no one, she would never look for anyone. Like, I'm telling you, this kid, you would come to her house and she would jump out the window because she wasn't going to deal with you, you know? But the mere fact that she would let me in and she would let me sit with her was enough. Was enough. It showed her that someone cared about her. That even though she could yell at me, she could scream at me, she would curse at me, I would just sit there. And again, as the empath that I am, I would just collect it all in, you know, because that was me giving her space. That was giving her that space to be able, and she knew it, you know, and she would apologize sometimes. And sometimes, you know, she didn't want to show that she cared. However, about a year passed and I had not seen her. And I was at an event, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Miss Yari. And she came and she gave me a hug and she gave me a kiss. And she's like, I miss you. I haven't seen you. How are you doing? And I didn't know how to react. I was like, how are you? You know, inside I was like, what's going on here, right? Because there were times that she would tell me to F off. You know, she would tell me, she did her purpose in life was to make no one like her. That she was so damaged that nobody deserved to have her in their life. So she made it possible for everybody that came into her life to make them hate her, because she didn't feel that she deserved to be liked or to be loved.
Wow.
And for me, I took that challenge. As difficult as it was, I took that challenge because I just knew that she wanted someone to tell her that it's okay. I just knew that she wanted someone to tell her that they loved her, you know? And she wanted the person who's supposed to love her the most. She did everything in her power to make that person feel that they were the worst thing ever on this planet. And she did a really good job at it. You know, I empathized a lot with that person too, because on the other end of it, as a mother and as a person, I just couldn't fathom someone hating me that much. But she didn't hate her. It's just that she was hurt. She felt unprotected, and she felt undeserving, and she felt unloved. And all she wanted was someone to love her. That's what she wanted. You know? So for me, I think those two situations right then and there, at that time, with that young individual, at one point I was like, I think I'm done working with youth. Like, I was like, yep. It's like the nail in the coffin, you know? And I was like, I don't think I can, you know, that was just, you know, and I think about her all the time. And I have to tell you, she pops up in my life in different ways that it's incredible, you know? And when she sees me, you know, even though she tries really hard not to smile, but she gives me that look, and that's enough for me, because I know that she's telling me, thank you. And I don't need her to tell it to me. She just needs to look at me. That's it.
Yeah. That was powerful.
Wow, that's beautiful. And it's so true, right? Because, you know, you said that word a couple times, right? We don't feel worthy. And when we don't feel deserving or worthy, then we do that. We make, you know, a situation where we're not going to be treated well, where we're going to push people away, right? Because of that hurt that we feel so deeply inside. That's a very touching story. Yari, because I tell you, when we're having these conversations, time goes so fast.
I know it.
It's just like, oh my God, we just got on and we already have the gear to get off. But in thinking about your life experience, right, and thinking about this next generation, what would be some words of consejo that you could offer to this up and coming next generation? And also, what are words of encouragement for the elders around that are going to be transitioning? There's a lot of us que estamos bajando de la montaña. And so what words can you offer to the elders that are out there, in this time?
I'll start with the youth. I think you need to be true to yourself. Just being true and authentic to who you really are. We live in a world where we want to make everybody else happy. And that comes with a lot of sacrifices of oneself when you want to make everybody else happy. And we end up losing who we really are and what values we have, I think, especially within our cultura, with the second and third generation, it's like, I think some find it a little too late in their paths because they're so used to being molded into the world that they're in, that they have to fit in, and be a certain way. And sometimes that is sacrificing who you are just to fit in, right? And if we think about like kids who are getting bullied and why, it's because they're being their true selves, right? And really, if you really think about it, right? The reason the person's getting bullied is because the bully is the one who is, I personally look at it as they're seeing something from that person that's so true that they can't do it themselves. So the only way they can feel on top of that person is by bringing them down because they can't be where that person is at in that person's true state. So I really, want to tell, young Latinas out there, just our young generation is think about the values that you're raised with. Learn from your elders. I'm going through a little struggle right now where even with my own children, they're like, this is my experience, not yours, right? That reminded me of what I used to tell my mother. Déjame caer. ¿Cómo yo voy a aprender? If you don't let me fall, I'm never going to learn, right? And now it's coming back to me where my kids tell me, and even the kids in the street, they're like, but this is my experience. This is not yours. How am I supposed to learn if you don't let me experience what I need to experience? So go ahead, experience. But you know what? Take the knowledge and the experiences that us elders share with you. It's not for us to tell you what to do. We're just giving you a word of caution. So you can be prepared for those things that may come your way that you may not be able to know how to handle, right? So take the advice, nobody's telling you how to live your life. It's just advice, just based on life experiences. For our elders, I think, especially, when I first really started getting into my career, I noticed that a lot of the people who worked in my circle, I had a lot of great mentors and had a lot of great elders, but they didn't know how to let go. So what ends up happening is that then the people are coming in to be able to prove, I'm using that word lightly, prove that we did learn from you, right? We did learn from you. We're living in this world now and have faith that they're going to do what's right. It may not be the way that you did it, but it may be the way that it has to be done, but it still gets the same point across at the end. So have a little faith. Let go. Let it go, right? I'm not a singer, right? Have faith. And if you have faith, then you have to let go. Because what ends up happening is like micromanaging. What happens when you micromanage someone? More mistakes are done because the person who you're micromanaging is constantly questioning if what they're doing is right. When you're not letting them do what they know is right and let that carry on. So for me, I think for, like I said, a young generation, there's a reason why we're here. There's a lot of teachings that I've had from that campo when I was 5, 6, 10 years old, 12 years old, that I still take with me today. Just work ethic. To get up in the morning and do something that you may not love every single day, but you got to get up and you got to do it, right? Because people got to eat and we got to eat too, right? And to our elders, you know what? We can learn a thing or two from our youngins. They're living in a different world that we grew up in.
Yes.
It's okay for us to learn from them too, because they do have something to bring to the table. It's about eating at the table collectively. and be able to enjoy what everybody brings to the table for the greater good, right? Because the intention, it's all about intention, right? Everything that we do in our world is all about intention. And sometimes we just have to listen and say, what is the intent and what are we trying to achieve? And how can we achieve that with the experience of our elders, but with the skill sets of our youngins? Because together we can accomplish so much more for our community.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for those words. Comadre, I mean, we have a young women's curriculum and we work with women that are, facilitate groups with young women. And we work ourselves with mujeres and young women. This conversation today has really, really uplifted the work that needs to be done and that is being done with our young women, right? What are you thinking, comadre?
I'm thinking I'm just going to ask her when her new book was coming out because I want a copy.
There you go.
I'm serious. I'm not being funny. Like,
Yeah.
I'm serious. I was like,
Yes.
just your way of articulating it and putting that imagery and that visual to it and connecting all the dots in such a beautiful feminine essence way.
I think some people are better performers than writers.
No.
And it's true, but I want to give you guys credit with something in my personal growth. I know that we're strapped for time, but I want to tell you that I think that one of the biggest blessings that I've had in my life was having the Compadre Network come to New York. You know, the sacred work that we were doing in that community and that we continue to do in that community, what you guys brought to the table really exacerbated our skills, gave us a different outlook on how to work with our own people. And sometimes we didn't take our culture enough into effect because we're so taught by this is what the book says, right? And this is how you're going to heal these people. And the cultural competence is such, now it's being brought in more. Mental health is now being more awareness now, right? And then bringing the cultural part into this, the cultural competency into mental health, is like the buzzword, right? Let's say, ever since COVID happened. But I have to tell you that I took this course before COVID. And what it has brought into my skill set and how I work with our people and how it made me have to be more in tune with myself and how culture plays, not just because I'm a proud Dominicana, but how it plays in everything that I do and how I interact with people. Like even my hand talking, this is not a New York thing. This is like a Latina thing, I think that, I'm very grateful for what that has brought into my professional career and what it has brought into my personal career. Like people don't understand when I say, well, I took a course and, I took, and I refer to, I have these maestras, right? And they're like, well, what do they teach? And I'm like, you can only be so privileged. So I want to thank you and the Compadre Network, and the Comadre Network who were able to help me, give me these extra tools to be able to spread this healing that we're looking to do within our culture and within our community. Because I really think that it just put me at a totally, at a different level, and I've taken it, from when I started at the other organization and where I am now. And they were also part of that, even though I wasn't part of that organization at that point, and now I am. And this is a part of our daily work. And, we open all of our staff meetings with palabra, so now it's just, now it's part of that ingrainedness that I have, that skill, and it's because of you ladies.
Wow.
And because of the Compadre Network. So I want to thank you so much for bringing this into my life, because it really has helped me really become more in tune. I've always been a spiritual person, but it just took me to another level. It really did. So gracias.
Oh, well, thank you to you. And you alluded to La Cultura Cura, and we're very grateful that we have the maestro of that, which is Maestro Yari Theo. And, and everything is based on those 4 values, which is love, dignity, respect, and trust. And on that, we've got to end this beautiful conversation and just want to thank everyone for listening today. And like I said, I know you heard something here that really made a difference in your life today. And thank you for joining us. And so with that, we're going to say bendiciones. And in Arahuaco, which is a Taino language, Abimirumi, bendiciones to all of the listeners. Comadre?
Yes, comadre. So grateful. Thank you so much for all your medicina today, Yari. The closing words, compassion, empathy, release and surrender with faith. Adelante. Gracias.
Ashe. Gracias.
Thank you. Bendiciones.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.